innovation, inspiration, and investment. So innovation, I think I sort of was what I was just touching on, this idea of bringing a new eye to an old set of issues. And therefore leading us to some type of innovation, to understand that it's not, but I want to be clear about this, it's not on student organizers to do all the work, and it actually takes relationships. So it's really going to be about the relationship that student organizers have with everyone else. The people who've been here for a long time, the new people who want to come in, whether, I don't care who it is, students, faculty, people working out in nonprofits, it doesn't matter. It's, really bringing that new eye to old relationships so that they can be, those relationships can be, something new can emerge from those relationships, and we start talking about innovation. When I think about inspiration, and for me this is across the board, so it's for student organizers, but it's not specifically. I think that to be inspired, to be inspired by something is, your heart has to be really open. I think to be really inspired, it means you have to, I think a couple things has to happen. Your heart has to be open. You have to be paying attention at multiple levels. So it's not just reading the right books or talking to the right people. It's actually paying attention to everything going on around you. I think being inspired is being honest with understanding who you are and where you stand, and having a willingness to actually go somewhere new that's really unfamiliar and maybe even scary to go. I think being inspired and being inspiring is showing that you're willing to take risks to gain. And it's something that I think we're less likely to do as people. It's more scary to take a risk to gain, because it might not work. People always use the success and failure model, and I think that is really not helpful, because it keeps people from taking the risks. If you want something innovative, if you want to be inspirational, if you want to be inspired, you have to take a risk. And the risk may not work, and you may take the risk and it doesn't work out like you thought. You didn't lose anything. For me, you never lose. You actually have gained something, even if it didn't work out the way you wanted to. You've sort of built up your own ability to take those risks, to develop that courage, to be inspired, to say, what is my life about? What is my larger intention? And how do I... how am I in service to that larger intention and not in service to the fear? And investment, and I know you're probably talking about money.
Or time.
Well, for me, it wasn't, I understand that there's a money element there. For me, investment is more broadly, money, time, investment of your person, investment of your investment of your life. And I don't mean it just to be dramatic, but really, it's not that your life can't be complex and full and whole, and you can't figure out all the things you need to have the quality of life you need. You need to be supported so that you can take these risks and move forward. This is, and not everyone's going to agree with me, but lately, just in my own thinking, in my own life, and my own challenges around doing my work and how that's seen and perceived, I think about, sometimes we have to go whole hog. The investment is, regardless of what we might lose doing it, because it says something about what we believe in. So.
Well, thank you for those insights.
Yeah.
And switching gears a little bit, what's something simple that students can do to help cultivate relationships?
Oh, wow, something simple. I don't know if it's simple. I think that, so when people say relationship to me, is really get clear, first of all, what you mean by relationship. And so I'm always talking about this idea of relationship of reciprocity. So if I want to go work with a community that I see as being particularly challenged by dominant culture, whether it's our economic system or the way we talk about environment, whatever that issue is, it's not simply about me going in to build a relationship and say, I'm coming in to build a relationship. It's a relationship of reciprocity, this idea that a true relationship, and when I think about sustainability in this case, means that I don't know how long this relationship is going to last. You actually, whoever you are that I'm going to have a relationship with, has say in how this relationship looks. It means I come to get to know you. I have to make an investment in saying that I'm willing to get to know who you are and what your needs are. I'm willing to share actually who I am fully, not halfway, just to meet some goal that I have down on the paper. Because relationship is about something beyond what we have down on the paper. So I think coming to terms with what you really mean by that, like a person to think about, what do I mean by relationship? I think about building our own capacity to have relationships. So that may mean building capacity and competency around language, and not just, whether you should speak Spanish or English, but I mean, even in the words we use in these environmental conversations, that we think everybody is thinking has the same cosmology, the same way of approaching and understanding, thinking about our language, our ability to talk across difference, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, whether it's ideological difference. I mean, really increase our competency to do that. What does that mean? I think that there are a lot of great groups and organizations out there that are explicitly doing that work. So sometimes it means you got to get additional schooling, additional learning. I've got to get additional learning. There's no end game to my learning. So I'm always looking for ways, doing that reflexive work and saying, God, what do I need to do? I know I have people who, in terms of issues of race, white students will say to me, I'm really interested in doing that work. And the first thing I want to say is the work you need to do first is you have to take an assessment and evaluation of where you are standing right now. And take some time, and you can get help doing that. But this is for all students of all walks of life. Really, delving into difference and wanting to stand in that tension of difference is doing the work of self-evaluation and being really honest about what that is. No one is perfect. We're all growing and learning. You're going to make mistakes. I make them. There's no end game to that. So it's not about doing things perfectly. I think it's about doing things intentionally and being clear about where you are at any given time and being willing to grow and learn from that. That's the simplest answer I can give, and it's not that simple. All right.
These things are complex.
Yeah.
And thank you
You're
for
welcome.
breaking them down and sharing your views and your lens with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm always thinking about these things, and I always get reminded of how emotional I am around it and how much it is that it informs who I am, and I'm always learning from it. I'm always learning from it as well. It's like, and I have days, and I want to say that I have days sometimes I don't want to deal with it. Sometimes this stuff is hard. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's frustrating because it's just not going where you feel it needs to go. Sometimes I have a lot of anxiety about it. I get stressed because I think about, I have self-doubt. Like, maybe what I'm doing is ridiculous and I need to just back it up. And all these things happen because I'm a person first before anything. And, this is part of that continual being reflexive, discovering what it is you need. Remaining true to the intention, knowing that the intention isn't set in stone, but always revisiting that. And the idea of always revisiting your vision. Often in organizations and institutions, we want to get to the deliverables, we want to get to the output, and we spend very little time on the vision. And the vision is going to set the tone for everything else that we do. So we should be spending the time on the vision, and that vision has to be revisited. We come up with our mission statements. These things need to be revisited regularly to make sure that we're standing in the truth that we've defined for ourselves, and that the truth changes depending on who you are, where you are in time, who you are in place. It doesn't make the truth any less valuable, but the truth is going to move around depending on who it is, where you are. It's going to always be like that. We have to be like that with it. So don't get me started. You already got me started. So.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And one last question.
Okay.
Our organization is made up of a variety of students coming from community colleges, city colleges, private universities, institutions such as UC Berkeley. Do you have any advice you'd like to offer our organization as we're coming together, the individuals in our organization as we're coming together to look at these issues? So I'm thinking about the way you framed the question, that you sort of pointed to the difference in terms of experience where students are coming from for that. I guess the one piece of advice, and you may be already, my heart is telling me you're probably already leaning in this direction, is to really be cognizant of how you all work together to create a space that allows those differences to be heard and valued equally. And it's one thing to say it, and it's a little harder to do. And I think that a lot of attention has to be paid to what that looks like. We have a way. I mean, we're sitting in one of the most prestigious public universities in the country. We know it. and even those of us who are just humble around that, that takes up a lot of space in the room. You know what I mean? And so it's not about devaluing this university, but it's about what does it mean to change up the space so that there's room for difference. Because once again, I'm going to say that's where the innovation is going to come from, because all the difference is in the room. And it may be that the biggest insight of the day is going to come from someone from someplace unexpected. But in order for that to happen, space has to be made. People have to be willing to listen. People have to be willing to let go of power and create something else. So,
well, thank you again for your time.
You're welcome.
Dr. Finney.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm missing the event, but I will be there in spirit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.